Hello, everyone. This is I'm Lene Anderson, and I am going live here on the Kappa account today to talk to the hosts of Take a Pain Check, who who is right there. Yeah, there's Natasha. Okay, we're just waiting for Trish.
Yeah, she joined, so I think she'll request you and then you can accept her.
Yes. So Trish, if you're I know you're out there, so just do a quick request to join, and then then I'll add you, which you
Yeah.
may actually be here. Invite. Hang on, where are you? There. Okay. Sorry, only my second time to go live, and this is, here we are. Hello, Trish. So
Hello.
nice to have both of you on here.
Yep.
Let me just, so I'm not cut off entirely. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. I am here on the Kappa account talking to Trish and Natasha, the founders of Take a Pain Check, an excellent podcast looking at autoimmune arthritis from a younger point of view, which is very welcome. So I guess we will just jump right into it. How you both have lived with juvenile arthritis. Can you just give us a kind of the Reader's Digest version of when you were diagnosed and how it affects you?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
So I was diagnosed at 13 years old with juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Trish?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed at 11 with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, and yeah.
okay, all right. And how are you both doing at the moment? Is your arthritis under control? How did it affect you?
So for me, it took a really long time to find medications that worked well for me. It took about 3 years, and it was only 2 years ago where I found medications that worked well on me. I haven't had any like flare-ups. So that's been really good. And so like my arthritis compared to like 13 years old and now I'm 18, honestly, it's been so much of a difference and it's made such a big difference. So I'm pretty good now. No crazy joints here and there, but yeah.
Yeah.
And Trish?
I've been pretty good as well. I was lucky enough that in about 2 years, I went on methotrexate and it got. I'm okay now, but I have really bad anxiety and with my flare-ups, so I coexist together.
Yeah.
But I'm able, like with a lot of mental health exercises and being able to control my anxiety, I'm able to make sure that I don't flare up maybe once every 2 months.
Okay, that's I guess sometimes you have to get to a tolerable point, right?
Yeah.
So what's it like to live with juvenile arthritis? Like I think a lot of maybe a lot of people watching know what it's like to do it as an adult. As you, I also have juvenile idiopathic arthritis, but was diagnosed back in the dark ages of rheumatology. So what's it like to live with juvenile arthritis now?
I definitely say living with juvenile arthritis is a challenge, but it could become a positive and something that it's okay to live with. It definitely does result in pain and barriers when you go to school, how people may think of you and all that, bless you. But definitely like living with juvenile arthritis has changed my life in many different ways. It's not in a bad way, I'd say. Like I've definitely made it a good thing, even though it doesn't
Yeah.
sound that great.
Okay.
I think my opinion on arthritis kind of changed over the years. When I was first diagnosed, obviously as an 11-year-old, it was difficult. But now I know that as I got into high school and university, I always used it as a way to propel myself forward. It was never a limiting factor. I played rugby for a number of years. I never let it stop me from doing anything I wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some of the misperceptions about juvenile arthritis that are particularly annoying?
I think Trish and I have honestly looked at so many, and so many have came along through our diagnosis period, and also like probably now. I guess I'll give one and then Trish can also add on to this, but I think just the invisible part of it, like people don't think you have juvenile arthritis because you can't see it. So I think the misconception is that they think that you don't have it, right? It's like juvenile arthritis is only for like old people, not for younger people. So it's really important that we raised awareness that kids can get arthritis and that is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just to add in, I think another part of it is also that we live similar lives to everybody, when it really is that I don't have as much energy to do things as one of my friends might. So even in that scenario, especially with adults, and they think that, oh, you're a teenager or you're a young adult, like, you know, you can just keep going. And especially in a workplace scenario, like you can just keep going, and it's like, well, no, I can't. I need a break. I need to relax a little bit. I think in that scenario, it's also a little bit tough.
Yeah. Did you ever, like when I was a kid with juvenile arthritis, I experienced a lot of bullying from in school, because at that time my arthritis was invisible as well, and they would, you know, see me like I wasn't in school, and they would see me out of bed in the afternoon. So, you know, I was a faker. Did you ever experience that as well?
Yes, unfortunately, too many times. Honestly, like it's not even just been peers, but it's been like the school faculty, principal, vice principal, teachers, all being like, you can't pursue math or science if you can't write and draw. Like so many different things. If like I couldn't color something, it was like, oh yeah, like they would make comments about it so that I shouldn't pursue things that I like just because I couldn't do certain things. Like they could make accommodations, but they chose not to. And it was like a really big burden to make an accommodation. And I think that's like where the bullying aspect came from. Also, tons of people in elementary school, the comments that they made about like certain shoes that I would wear that had orthotics, or like anything I would do. There's definitely been a lot of bullying, but I think now, like, because of advocacy and standing up for yourself, it's made a big difference and change.
Yeah. I was a little bit lucky, I guess, that I didn't experience a lot of bullying. My arthritis was under control quite quickly, so I wasn't missing out on a lot of school, and I've always been able to go to school and to do the things that I wanted. So I didn't experience it on that end, but when it came to faculty, and especially the people that were supposed to help provide accommodation, get to take advantage of those because they couldn't see so they assumed that I was like everyone else.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem. Like I've known of other parents where you have an actual individual education plan and it's just not followed. So that's kind of that's a real problem. So let's talk about the uncomfortable part, the physically uncomfortable part of living with JIA, the pain. How do you manage pain?
For me, I incorporate a healthy lifestyle. So on top of medications, just eating healthy. Definitely I'm a culprit of not exercising. Like I struggle to even want to exercise, and I know it's different for Trish, but like for me, just like eating healthy, I know that my joints feel so much better. So that's something I've incorporated. And honestly, just like wrist braces, you know, KT tape, which I also got introduced to from Trish. So just like when you talk to people, you learn what they use as pain management, and then you tend to like kind of latch on to that and then use it as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to talk to others because it gives you those out of the usual heat and ice thing. It gives you other ideas. So Trish, tell us a bit about this KT tape. I've seen it used more and more in the chronic pain community, so it does work.
Yeah. I've been using it since I was a kid. I don't remember how we discovered it, but I believe it's from my mom's friends. And, you know, I swear by KT tape. I think it is the best thing to exist. I provides a level of pressure constant on your joints that you will not be able to have otherwise. And it's not bulky, especially playing. And I played rugby, so I didn't really have the chance to wear bulky things because you were touching people and you were in people's
Yeah.
faces. So especially having that, and I have like, it's really bad in my hand. So to have something that controls it in that sense, KT tape is live and die. Like, I use it for everything.
Yeah, and I think it's like, to your point, it's like when I was growing up, you had the, the bulky and, let's face it, really ugly splints and braces. And the fact that you could do a KT tape, which comes in so many colors, so you can actually kind of color code you and match it to what you're wearing. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And I guess that also talks to so much of what helps you get better is, why does this have to be so ugly? Is my ongoing question. Is like, can we not hip it up a bit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They change the color of casts, but not the color of wrist braces.
I know, right? So let's talk about, you are both over 18, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that means, I think that's the magic age to transition from pediatric rheumatology to adult care. Can you share tips on how to make that easy? I know, like, if it can be a struggle, how do you make that easier, and what was your experience?
So I'm 18 and I haven't transitioned, so I'll pass it on to Trish because she knows way more. I've heard from so many people that it's a struggle to transition and there's so many things that happen, but I've not experienced it firsthand, so I'll pass it on to Trish to talk about it.
Yeah. So when I transitioned, I was actually not a part of like a big clinic. I went to Centenary Hospital in Toronto. So when my transition happened, kind of looking for doctors because we didn't have any connection. And,
So, quick question, if I may. Your pediatric rheumatology didn't give you a referral to someone else?
she was going to, but then my mom and I were a little hesitant about it. And it just so happened at the time my neighbor was selling a home, and the adult couple that had moved in, they were in their 70s, but the lady also had arthritis and they had just moved here from like about an hour away. So she was looking for a doctor, and her husband is a doctor. So they found a psychologist, and I ended up I said, okay, like, let's give it a shot. And she's been great. So it was okay in the fact that the cards kind of fell into place for me. But I feel like if I had to look for a rheumatologist by myself, or, get a referral, and I know we've heard crazy stories about how rheumatologists don't work for you, and, it's hard in the transition phase to be able to share those things. And when I first went to the rheumatologist, my mom came with me, and that was a little tough as well because I was still leaning on my mom.
Right.
So when I first started going by myself, it kind of changed my perspective on, okay, I have to be the one to talk about it. I have to be the one to tell my doctor everything. And I'm finally at the stage where I have enough control over my arthritis that my doctor's gone on maternity leave. There is a replacement rheumatologist, but I can go 6 months to a year without an appointment and not feel like I'm dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like it's a hit and miss for everyone. And if the cards really fall into place, it can work. But on the other hand, you really have to be able to find a rheumatologist that works for you. And if she doesn't work for you, you have to be able to move on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think, to your point, a couple of things. First of all, ask your pediatric rheumatologist to do a referral and make sure they do it. And I think secondly, I think it's also important for parents to gradually take more of a back seat, like a year or two before you turn 18, so that you can just gradually kind of learn with backup in the moment. So I think that's important. So, Natasha, you are the host of the podcast Take a Pain Check, and you're both founders of this, and it started, I think, earlier this year. So what inspired you to start this podcast?
Trish and I were actually tag leaders, which is like teen arthritis auto-inflammatory group, I think that's called, leaders for Cassie and Friends, which is a charity organization, and that's how we met. And we had tons of conversations about like how there was so many things that we lacked when we were growing up with arthritis, And so after these conversations, we were like, okay, let's do something. At first, we were just really confused. Like, we're like, let's start an Instagram account. Let's start a YouTube channel. We didn't really know. And it kind of just happened really quickly. And I think Trish can add on to like what happened in the span of a month, where we just like pulled it together and we were like, let's do something that'll allow us to advocate. Also, at first, I did not want to advocate for others. I was like terrified to talk about my disease. But Trish kind of pushed me and was like, okay, like let's do this. Like she's been doing it for a while. So I felt like, okay, like if I have someone to rely on to do it with me, it's not as scary, but we're doing it for a good cause. And I know that I lacked support, and so giving this support to other people would be really beneficial.
Yeah.
Just a reminder for those of you watching, if you have a question for Trish or Natasha, let us know in the comments, which move fast really quickly, but I'll try to catch them. So talk to me a little bit about, Trish. Natasha mentioned that that there's a lot of things missing. What are some of those gaps that prompted you to do this podcast?
Yeah, so I went to Camp Cambria, which is a camp completely for kids with arthritis. It's a free week of camp every summer, and I've been going since Ontario, so since I was about 14. And I met my best friend at camp. You know, we're still friends to this day. We're getting tattoos next week together. That kind of made me realize that just because I had that experience, not everyone else does. And in that moment, I've always had the scope of my parents always pushed me to do whatever I wanted to do, regardless of the fact that I had arthritis, right? My mom never came to any one of my rugby games because she was terrified of it, but she still let me do it. So that scope, I realized, was very new, and not a lot of kids had that. And instead of using arthritis as almost like a diving board to be able to push yourself into doing things that you wanted to do, it was more of a resistance band. And we're not using it as an excuse, but we're genuinely afraid of being able to do things because of their arthritis. And I think my factor, and that I think is what is missing in the arthritis community. Kids especially, aren't either in the conversation. It's their parents and the doctor. They're not being pushed to not support, but just to do what they actually want to do. It's been used as a factor. So in that sense, I think that's what's missing, and having an adult and young adults to advocate for that is something that's so needed, because adults don't always know what to go through, and it's a very different experience than an adult arthritis experience.
Yeah, and I think a lot comes down to your parents. Like you said, your mom was terrified that you would hurt yourself, but it's still like, yeah, go do it, because you have to live your life. And I was lucky that my parents thought the same way. That it was like, yeah, there may be certain things I couldn't do, but it's like, you can do this, so go do it, right? So I think that's really important, and maybe having someone like yourself basically saying, yeah, this is possible, and like, let's not instill a fear.
Yeah.
More kind of a healthy respect, I guess.
Yeah. And it's neat to have those open conversations with your parents and with your doctors, even at a younger age. You know, I used to go to doctor's appointments and not say anything, and the doctor would ask me, I'd look. So having that conversation open with your doctor is so important, and your friends. And like, you know, I always, growing up with my friends, it was really hard for me to say, you know, I wanted to do anything and everything. And as I got into university, I learned that, okay, I can't say yes, because at the end of the day, my body is going to hurt. And even now, like, I've been way more than I can do with school and work and, you know, doing everything that I want to be a part of. But that it all comes down to what I'm really willing to give up. And I'm not willing to give up my body. Like, I'm not willing to be in pain. So some things do take a backseat.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts you want to add, Natasha, to that?
No, I think she said it
Yeah.
pretty well.
Okay.
A lot of things that were lacking in the past, and I think for the podcast, we want to bring them to the forefront and kind of deal with it and make sure that other people that are diagnosed don't have to go through what we did in terms of like mental and emotional support.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's really important. Like I remember as a kid with JIA, like the loneliness and the lack of connection was
Yeah.
mm, a much bigger issue really than the pain.
Yeah.
That I just didn't know anyone like me.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important that you have somebody who knows. And like whether you're a child or a young adult or an adult my age, like that connection to others in the community is invaluable.
Yeah.
So what are some of your biggest current challenges of living with RA, or sorry, JRA?
Trish, want to go first? I need to think about it.
Okay.
I think my biggest challenge in the past couple of years, especially coming into university, was really the mental health aspect of it. You know, one of my best friends lives in Ottawa, and we always had each other's back. We always knew the pain that the other person was going through. So if you have you text each other and be like, oh, like I can't deal with it, whatever. But we always discussed that mental health, we didn't realize it, it was such it changed life. It really did, because I and anxiety pain, it showed up in my arthritis. If I was really anxious for presentation, I would be in pain or the day of. So when I finally started talking about that and really actually learning what I could do to fix it and to deal with it, I'm not saying it's completely eradicated, but it's still something I suffer with, and I think it's still one of my biggest challenges to date. I people even now, and I love saying yes to everything, but I found that I can't say yes to a point. My health and my anxiety, you know, I shouldn't be feeling that way when I'm doing something. So it's really, especially in my work and in my school, I've really had to figure out what's priority for me. And now that I'm graduating this year and I'm thinking about my career, so I started applications for master's programs and this and that. Now it's really coming to the point where I really have to pick what I want to do.
Well, and you know, from someone who still struggles with this, I can say if you figure out that way of honoring your body and saying no to when it gets too much, that's a big help. I still have trouble saying no to things that sound fun. Natasha, did anything come to mind while we were
Yeah,
pausing?
I definitely do have the struggle to say no as well. Like I say yes to everything and I somehow try to fit it in and I'm able to do it. But I do know it can be a lot. But I think just like in my personality, I just tend to like be like, yes, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. And I just like am able to kind of fit it in. So it's been going well for me. I think in the end, it'll be so stressful because everything's gonna pile up and I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm doing like way too much. But you know, it hasn't hit that point, so I've just been like going and doing what I have to do, kind of like rearranging my schedule to fit things in. But a big challenge that I've had is just stress in general. I'm the type of person who gets stressed out very easily, um,
Mhm.
and like over like little things. And it's just I think for arthritis, like one of the main causes I'd say is stress and like into like that mental health aspect. So I just like tend to always like stress out, you know, like my brother leaves his water bottle at school. I'm stressed about that, but it has nothing to do with me. You know, there's like
Mhm.
little random things that just like stress me out. I've become better to like deal with it. Like I just tend to be like, hey, like that's your problem. I have other things to deal with. Like I've improved on that, but it is something that like is, I know, not directly but indirectly affecting my arthritis, I feel.
Yeah, I think like it's really interesting how this conversation kind of moved away from the physical and into how much your mental health affects your ability to cope and affects your body, and that how so much of dealing with any form of autoimmune arthritis is the mental game. And I'm trying to learn that I think there's a Polish saying that translates to "not my circus, not my monkeys," and I think knowing which is yours to be stressed about and which belongs to someone else is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of comments talking about, like, yes, that whole idea of honoring your body and the stress and dealing with all of that. And April just talks about FOMO, so the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And do you think that fear of missing out, and in a way that your juvenile arthritis is actually driving that push to want to do everything?
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of FOMO. Not more. Maybe when I was a kid, but when I got out of high school, I kind of just realized that at the end of the day, like, what I really wanted to put my mind to and do it. But if I don't regret not being there, or if I don't regret not doing it, then I don't need to have FOMO about it. I struggle with this point. My friends are really, my boyfriend and my friends really enjoy partying or going out, but I'm not like I don't need to be at the party. That probably came from the fact that I wasn't invited to a lot of parties in high school, so I didn't like care about it. So it's something I struggle with when I because they have FOMO and I, but
Okay.
I haven't found it to be a big deal breaker.
What about you, Natasha? Does FOMO get you?
I don't think, like, I don't really, I know a lot of the time a lot of people with arthritis deal with fatigue and stuff like that, and that's why they kind of have to miss out on certain things. I don't deal with that or have anything, and like my friends are very accommodating and try to involve me in some way or the other, so I don't have any issue where I have to miss something, and if I do, then like they would understand. But it hasn't really, like, yes, I understand the feeling of missing out. I would feel that way. I think it's like normal to feel that way. But I haven't had any like particular instances where I felt that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And I think what you were just mentioning about your friends being understanding and accommodating and maybe finding a different way to actually hang out, I think it's so important to surround yourself with supportive people who get it. So awesome. This has been a wonderful chat. Before we stop, where can people find you online? Like, I understand, Trish, that we'll talk about the podcast in a minute, but I understand, Trish, that Natasha is a solo host now. Is that true, Natasha?
I have 3 jobs and last year of school, and I am getting ready. I'm gearing up for master's programs after school. So I have a lot on my plate, and one of my jobs is very full-time and very client catering. So I have a very flexible schedule when it comes to things that I want to do. So in that case, you can always find me online, my Instagram. I'm always available to chat. You can DM me. I'm always here. I still try to stay involved as much as I can, but now that I'm older, I have to I have to switch focus.
Yeah. And just to clarify, Trish's Instagram is Trish _ Peters. Yeah, Peters with 1 T. And Natasha, talk to us about what it's like to run the podcast on your own and where we can find the podcast.
Yeah, so I just recently started to run the podcast on my own. You can find the podcast. Well, actually, Trish and I tried to make it as accessible as possible. So you're actually able to listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Anchor. You can also watch my face. Who doesn't like to watch people's faces? And the guest face. So you can watch it on YouTube. It is bi-monthly on Sundays. So the next episode will be out next Sunday. So it'll be every 2 episodes in a month. And in the middle of that, there will be a blog post by the medical advisory board that I've now gotten. So they'll be like publishing any research that's happening in regards to arthritis, something that they want to share. So I also have a website. It's literally just www.takeapaincheck.ca or takeapaincheck.com. You can literally see everything there. You can get involved. There's so many ways people can get involved. So you can find us there. And the Instagram that I'm on right now is takeapaycheck_. We have TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it, we got it, I hope.
So yeah, and it's all just you just look for Take a Paycheck anywhere and you find it there.
Honestly, just search up Take a Paycheck on Google and you'll find us.
Okay. I got one last question, and that's my fault because I was don't know this way of going live terribly well. A question regarding what do you do for pain management when you're not able to take pain medication? Do you have any, like, I guess there's a toolbox, and medication is one tool. What, aside from KT tape, what's your favorite pain management tool? Just before we go out.
I'd say a wrist brace is what I use. Yes, may not be the most nice looking thing, and it's very thick. And since we can't say KT tape, I would say wrist brace. There's also like topical creams that work as well. And maybe Trish, you want to expand on that?
Like I am a very KT medicine type person. Other than sleep is so important for me. My body will complain if I do not have at least 6 hours of sleep, which is not a lot. That's what I run on. And other than that, like pain management, escapism is a big thing. I find I back to myself with, and that's probably my box.
Okay, great. But I am at the minute we are no longer live. I will go buy some KT tape. So that's definitely, you should sell stocks. All right, thank you so much, and for making time for us on a Saturday, and thank you to Kappa for letting me host and for arranging this. It was wonderful, and we will make sure that, or I will attempt to make sure that this live, it will be popped into a highlight on the Kappa account, so that if you want to rewatch it, or for those of you who who may not have watched it live, can watch it there. And I believe it's also going up on the Kappa YouTube account. Wow. So it's going to be everywhere as well. Yes. All right, thank you so much. It was a pleasure
talking. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay.